mysterious Soviet boxer who left America gobsmacked with his unparalleled power. Say hello to Vyacheslav Lemeshev, one of the greatest boxers of the USSR who in 1972, by the age of 20, did the unthinkable. He captured Olympic gold, instantly etching his name in the history books. Unassuming at first glance, this young prodigy possessed an otherworldly talent. A single touch of his gloves sent opponents crashing to the canvas. But fame can be a fickle mistress, and the pinnacle of success was just the beginning of his story. As he soared to unimaginable heights by the age of 23, fate took an unexpected turn, hurtling Lemeshev into a downward spiral that concluded in absolute tragedy. Today we pay tribute to the champion who captivated millions, whose skill perplexed even the most esteemed scientists, and whose life met a haunting, sorrowful end. For the first time, Slava Lemeshev was introduced to boxing by his older brothers. They were both boxing at that time, and although Lemeshev was a thin and unsportsmanlike boy, the brothers still brought him to the thresholds of the boxing gym, where the honored trainer Lev Segalovich met the young talent. Despite the fact that Lemeshev Jr. mildly did not look like a natural athlete, he had a phenomenal reaction. The eye of an experienced coach immediately noticed this feature in the boy, and he took him under his care. The legendary Soviet coach immediately realized that unique person fell into his hands. Later, he put Slava's technique and developed athleticism. With age, the boxer also formed his signature move, a short blow with his right hand, with which he will extinguish the light to almost all his rivals.
He didn't do much action in the ring. He worked with the jab, constantly moved and kept his distance. But he had a deadly right hand with which he turned out the light of almost anyone. I didn't understand how he did it. I even asked him, "Slava, how do you do it?" To which he replied, "I don't know myself."
Lemeshev had such a high reaction rate that he amazed even scientists. They did not believe the results of his tests. It turned out that not a single Soviet boxer could react to stimuli as quickly as Vyacheslav. Lemeshev was only 18, and everyone understood that he was a natural phenomenon.
One of the sports journalists once asked him, "Slava, how do you manage to hit so accurately?" To which he replied, "I don't even try. I just feel the moment and hit." And that was true. He sensed, he threw his punch and calmly walked into his corner, realizing that the opponent will not stand up again. Is this talent? This is a great boxer.
In 1972, Vyacheslav participated in the USSR Adult Championship, where he failed to even enter the top 3. But during preparation, physiologists once again recorded an interesting fact. Lemeshev's reflex speed is higher than of any athlete, and as a result, the hero of our story was included in the Olympic bid. And finally, the long-awaited Olympics in Munich in 1972 arrived. The 20-year-old Soviet boxer was not feeling well. Shortly before the start of the tournament, he managed to get sick, and so the preparation was blurred. Nevertheless, the tournament for Lemeshev is going like clockwork, knocking out left and right. The Soviet boxer reaches the semi-finals, and there he already knocks out the tournament favorite, American Marvin Johnson.
Рефери как раз сейчас попросил Джонсона не опускать голову. Видно, что потрясен Марвин Джонсон, потому что он начинает пропускать. Пропускать и так пытается валиться на Лемешева буквально.
Ну, ищет спасение, чтобы атаки менее эффективнее были.
Вот только сейчас нокдаун отсчитывает рефери. Марвин Джонсон пытается убедить всех, что он может продолжать, но видите, сколько за последние секунд 20 он напропускал жестких ударов. Действительно с трудом стоит на ногах.
Тот первый удар был как бы звонком для...
Ну вот, собственно говоря, и все. Здесь уже убедился.
After this defeat, he will never enter the amateur ring again. By the way, the notorious promoter Don King also followed this fight, and then became eager to bring Lemeshev to the States.
The skinny Soviet guy knocked Johnson out. I asked my friend, "Who is this boy?" He said the name. I tried to find him after the Olympics. All the threads led to the USSR. This damn communist world. I hated the Soviet Union, but they created ring monsters. I will never forget the knockouts of this guy, recalled Don King.
Having defeated the American, Lemeshev reached the final but faced a problem. In the fight with Johnson, he injured his right hand and went into the decisive fight with 25-year-old Remy Virtanen on painkillers. However, this did not stop Vyacheslav from knocking down his opponent 3 times already in the first round, after which the fight was stopped.
Посмотреть, боксеры говорят, неудобно.
Ну и вот, пожалуйста, собственно, практически первое с ног опрокинуть. Но вот еще одно падение. Время видно. Знаете, возможно, это самый легкий для него бой на Олимпиаде. 3-е падение. Вот это уже, скорее всего, будет нокаут.
While the referee helped Virtanen turn over, Lemeshev, seemingly fresh and cheerful, stood in his corner and received instructions from the coach. But this was just a formality. 20-year-old Vyacheslav had already become an Olympic champion.
4 из 5 поединков на Олимпиаде Лемешев закончил нокаутом. Просто для современного бокса показатель вообще невероятный.
Но где-то бокс изменился в своем...
Ровно через Олимпиаду советская сборная выигрывает золото. В 1956 году Геннадий Шатков, в 1964 Валерий Попенченко и вот в 1972 Vyacheslav Lemeshev.
Lemeshev returned to his homeland as a real star. Of course, he became the youngest boxer in the history of Soviet sports to win the Olympics. A charismatic guy who never refused an autograph from fans, who knew how to make anyone laugh, the owner of a bushy mustache and a Hollywood smile, Lemeshev was ideal for the role of the star. In fact, he had everything, except the psychological readiness for such attention. The collapse of fame forced Lemeshev to abandon constant and difficult training. He decided that his natural talents and authority were enough to continue winning. The boxer also started drinking. At first periodically, and by 1974, constantly. Olympic medalist Viktor Rybakov recalled,
"For me in those days, Slava was an icon, a monument if you like. But he drank badly. Why? Hard to say. After his victory in Munich, he was so popular that it was impossible to walk down the street with him. They stopped us at every step. He didn't refuse anyone who invited him, according to Russian tradition, to celebrate the victory."
The fact that Lemeshev is perhaps one of the most gifted athletes in history is proven by the fact that in the first few years after the Games, even with this lifestyle, he continued to win medals. There was simply no escape for his opponents from his blow. In 1973, Vyacheslav won the Adult European Championship for the first time in his career, and in 1975 he repeated the success. In 1974 he won the National Championship, and then won silver and bronze awards at all union competitions. Lemeshev's personal trainer Yuri Radonyak explained, "He was too talented a boxer, so much so that I forced myself to turn a blind eye to violations of the regime. Nevertheless, no one was going to simply give a ticket to the 1976 Olympics in Montreal to the current champion. There was a traditional selection ahead." Rufat Riskiev and Anatoly Klimanov fought against Lemeshev for the right to participate in the Olympics. The Olympic champion defeated Klimanov twice, but lost to Riskiev. He, by decision of the State Sports Committee, went to the Games. Riskiev brought silver from Montreal. In the final, he lost to the American Michael Spinks, the future absolute world light heavyweight champion, whom Lemeshev, by the way, had previously won. Much later, it emerged that Vyacheslav performed for many months with an injury to his right hand. It's impossible to say for sure, but according to one version, the culprit is a careless attitude to training. Lemeshev actually boxed with his left hand. He kept on with injections, although urgent surgery was required. They didn't do this in the Union, and the status of a superpower did not allow sending the athlete to where they could help him. All that domestic doctors offered was constant pain relief. The only way to hope for improvement was to quit sports. Failure in the selection, as well as the realization that it was impossible to completely heal the injury, hit Lemeshev hard. There was absolutely no motivation left to train, and in 1977, Lemeshev announced his retirement. At first, he was going to turn professional, but it never came to that. Vyacheslav finally abandoned the sport and went on a drinking binge. They tried to return him to the ring, but in vain. The boxer did not look like himself. Lemeshev was only 27, but from that moment his decline began. He would never return to Olympus and would begin to become an alcoholic. A year after leaving, friends helped Lemeshev go on a business trip to Germany, where he became a coach in a group of Soviet troops. But such work did not benefit the Olympic champion. In Germany, he got so drunk that he swung drunk on the chandeliers of German restaurants. But Lemeshev was only 28 at the time, and he felt young, often sparring with his subordinates. But this did not lead to any good. Often the former champion was knocked out even by first-class fighters. In Germany, Lemeshev fainted for the first time. Then he did not pay attention to it. But he had already returned to his homeland with a bunch of illnesses. The boxer's eyesight had deteriorated. His kidneys and liver were failing. Soon, problems with cerebral vessels, psoriasis, and epilepsy appeared. Doctors made a terrible diagnosis: brain atrophy. It was a progressive illness, which was probably caused by missed shots during his career and many years of alcoholism. The money from the fighting quickly ran out, and Vyacheslav got a job, first as a driver at pumping stations, and then as a gravedigger at a cemetery. His third wife, Zinaida, looked after him. She sincerely loved and looked after the champion. But every year, Vyacheslav became worse and worse, and the process could not be stopped. By the 1990s, Lemeshev had already become disabled. First, he received the second group, and then the first. He suffered from memory loss, could not work or even go on his favorite hunt with friends. Vyacheslav was always a sociable guy. He knew a lot of jokes, was a good storyteller, and communicated with anyone on equal terms. Therefore, in difficult times, his friends did not abandon him and helped him with money, because his pension and disability benefits were not enough for life and medicine. Lemeshev was getting worse, and in 1995 the boxer was hospitalized and had a craniotomy. Vyacheslav was in a coma for 8 days but still pulled out. One of the doctors, having studied the champion's tomography, admitted that he had never seen his brain so badly damaged. She turned out to be right. In December 1995, Lemeshev was again in the hospital, and a month later he was gone. The Olympic champion died a beggar, and before his death he became blind and almost never left his apartment. Vyacheslav had everything to become a legend, but he quickly took off and burned out just as quickly. During his career, he won 103 victories with 7 defeats, remaining one of the brightest but most ruined talents of Soviet boxing.